Right then, let's have a look at some YouTube comments, if I dare. What's this one? I made a fun video just for you. Let's have a look at this.
No wonder Dan Brown loves this area. I hope he works there. We're looking for him. Excuse me.
Yes?
Have you seen Dan Brown?
Dan Brown? Who's Dan Brown?
Have you seen Dan Brown?
I've never seen Dan Brown, but I know he wrote Da Vinci Code and The Angels and Demons.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
Have you seen Dan Brown?
Yeah. Over there. I think he's buying a boat.
Have you seen Dan Brown?
Yeah, he's over there buying a boat.
Let's get onto the video properly, my friends. Thanks for that. Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from sortofinteresting.com, and today you are joining me on good old Narrowboat Abel's Ark, and I want to talk in this video about my first 2 weeks on board and settling in, but I mainly want to focus that around spending those 2 weeks in a marina, which is something that I didn't spend much time at all doing when I lived on Narrowboat Tilly in years gone by. In fact, I only actually spent 2 months out of 4 years in a marina previously. Whereas at the minute, there's so many odd jobs and so much work going on board Abel's Ark that it just makes far more sense to be here in the marina rather than out on the towpath trying to organise getting people to and from the boat and getting things like my furniture and stuff on and off the boat. So I've paid for a month's mooring here at Blackwater Meadow Marina out at Ellesmere, and I've got to say, I've really enjoyed these last 2 weeks. Not only has it been this amazing, beautiful weather that's dazzling the camera and making it really awkward to find a good angle to film from without me disappearing into like just a sun-bleached background, but ultimately, it's been a really nice experience just because I've thoroughly enjoyed marina life. Far more than I ever thought that I would have, and certainly it's made me alter my view and already start considering more seriously having a long-term mooring that I take frequent trips out onto the canal from before returning to for various reasons, which we'll discuss in this video and going forward after the next few weeks when I've decided what my general plans are. But don't worry, there's going to be plenty of travelling on the canal and plenty of footage from out there in these absolutely beautiful parts of Wales and Shropshire that I've loved for so many years on my previous Narrowboat Tilly. So the first thing, I suppose, that I've noticed with marina life is, and the first big benefit, I suppose, of what I'm trying to say, is that ease of access that I say. So I've been getting things like my furniture, sofa, desk, mattress and stuff like that on and off the boat, and taking the other stuff off the boat. And I had a chest of drawers on here that I'd fetched out, and then I decided I didn't like it, so that went back off. Where you can imagine here in the marina, it's about a 200-foot trip, if that, from the car, from a van, to move furniture on and off the boat. However, if I was out on the towpath, it would be a case of trying to organise, oh right, well, if you drop it off at this bridge, I'll come through and we can moor up just round the corner and again, even though it's not an insurmountable object to get stuff sorted out on the canal, but it's just far easier to do it in the marina, and especially because there's been all the painting to do on the inside of Abel's Ark. There's been all of the general problems and things going wrong, as you may know from my previous video. The inverter blew and the water pump wasn't working, both of which are now fixed, luckily, so that's a bonus, that's a benefit. And of course, there's the basic principle of ease of access, to have people come visiting, and especially in this early time of boat life, people want to come out and have a nose at where I'm living, and all the handshakes that come with moving into a new home and all that sort of fun and games. And on top of that, I suppose there's the other element, which for me personally in my life as a non-driver at the moment, I'm intending to learn to drive and hopefully get a car in the next 3 to 4 months or so. Again, got to see what happens with the expenses of doing jobs on the boat, and got to basically, again, it's just see what happens over the coming months and make decisions based on the circumstances at the time. Sound like Tony Blair. Anyway, moving swiftly on from that. Without having a car, the ease of access is hampered a little bit, and that's one of the real themes of my early boat life here of these first few weeks. is basically me getting back into the habit of being on my bike all the time. So for an example of ease of access and my cycling, this is literally just a pedal bike, no electric bike or anything like that. I used to, when I lived on Narrowboat Tilly for 4 years, cycle all sorts of distances. Some would be short little rides in and out to go to work in Oswestry. Some of them would be maybe 15 miles in one direction to get to Oswestry and do an 8-hour shift and then get back. Where I am here at Ellesmere, it is about 8.5 miles, just over 8.5 miles each way in and out. So over the last 3 days, for example, I've done 2 8-hour shifts and 1 7-hour shift. So 23 hours work over 3 days. That's nothing, that's fine, that's just normal working hours. However, when you then throw in the fact that each of those days there's been at least a 16-mile bike ride attached to that as a round trip in and out, that then puts us at, oh, it's about 23 hours work and about 52 miles cycling that you've done, which suddenly starts to make those days seem an awful lot longer than just an 8-hour shift. As I'll get up at, say, if I'm in work at 9 AM, I'll get up at 7 AM and then off I'll tootle, and it takes about 45 minutes to cycle into town from here, which is, as I say, it's a mid-range ride, but there's a great big hill in the middle, which is really annoying because it would be such a simple, such an easy bike ride without that hill, and it would be maybe a half an hour top sort of journey. However, obviously there's that hill, so when I'm thinking about when I'm finishing work and walking out of the door, instead of having that moment of relaxation and thinking, oh, I'll go and sit down in the car, or I'll just walk home to where I used to live in my flat in Oswestry, which was about 10 minutes away, instead I'm thinking, right, work's done, now I've got to get on my bike and put in another 8 miles or so on that. So it's not the easiest place in many respects to have a long-term mooring in terms of a non-driver, but hopefully as I get used to it again, as I used to cycle thousands of miles a year and that on Narrowboat Tilly, not on the boat up and down the 30-foot length continuously, but when I was travelling around with Tilly I would cycle far bigger distances than that. But again, I'm like 6 years older and 6 years less fit than I was literally just turned 25 when I bought Tilly. So that's something that's been an interesting thing for me to settle in and just reacclimatise to. And that's one of the interesting things as well with talking about benefits and stuff with Marina Life, that there's other marinas that are slightly closer and less drastic cycle rides. For example, Whittington Wharf, which is replaced Meistermin Marina just down by, well, Whittington I suppose, the clue's in the name there. But that is a simple on the side of the canal mooring, an online mooring, so you're not in a cut off marina out of the way of the traffic and that, which is one of the big bonuses of being in a marina, if you ask me, is getting away from the absolutely mad summer traffic up here on the Llangollen Canal, as it really does get unbelievably busy, and then in the winter totally and utterly all the traffic disappears and you can be the only boat for miles around. So there's somewhere like that which would be not even half the time spent on my bike and not even half the effort because I'd missed the big hill, but I feel that this is still the overall better marina experience, which we'll talk about the costs in just a second. But in a similar theme, it would be probably a shorter distance between Oswestry and Chirk Marina, but because of the nature of the roads that I'd have to travel down to Chirk Marina, it would probably be a harder, more awkward bike ride, like a longer time on my bike, because it turns into country lanes that are all up and down, and they get really muddy over the winter months. And again, out here at Ellesmere, it may be longer, but you've got just a good solid main road if you choose that route, or you've got multiple other ways that you could weave down the rural country lanes and probably turn it into about a 12 or 13 mile bike ride if you were feeling particularly energetic one workday morning. Another benefit of being in somewhere like Blackwater Meadow Marina, because you've got a lot of holiday boats that operate from here, you obviously have staff on site who know everything about boats and plumbing, gas, electricals, engines. So obviously it's very handy to have literal professional help about a 10-second walk away. And equally, I suppose, on top of that, you've got the services of the marina. We've got a dry dock I can just see the edge of past the boat next door. We've got a covered over area for working on boats. We've got obviously all the services you would expect, things like diesel, got water and electric points along the jetties here, so you don't have to move to fill up the water, or for example, there's also waste disposal, to put it tactfully, things like that, where you might be thinking in the past or on Narrowboat Tilly, right, got to make sure that I can empty my toilet somewhere in the next few days, so you'd have to plan trips around those sort of lovely ideas. But obviously here you're moored up, and like I say, if you're running low on water, then it's literally about a 20-foot distance to put the hose pipe on the tap and then put it straight into the tank in the bow of Abel's Ark. So things like that are obviously far, far more convenient than having to build those sort of needs into your cruising plans and maybe end up in emergencies doing not a day's travel, but you might end up doing a couple of hours of travel just to get water, just to empty a toilet, just to do this, that or the other, compared to being here and literally just taking the hose pipe off the boat, attaching it to the tap and then filling up with water. So that's definitely another benefit, and another sort of ease of access element of benefit. Now, on top of that, if I consult my list of things here, we've got all sorts of bits and pieces. So I suppose there's the element of community, that you're surrounded by a more regular group of boats rather than out on the canal where your neighbours can change every day. There's obviously a more sort of stable amount of boats that are here for the longer term. So you've got people who live on boats, you've got people who come out to just do weekends on boats. So there's a lot more people around that you'll see more often, rather than potentially being on the canal and then seeing a boat one night, speaking to the people, and then never seeing them on the canal again, because by the time you wake up in the morning, or by the time they wake up, one of you has moved off down the canal in the opposite direction, and that's the end of that. So there's more of that community, I suppose. I mean, you certainly get plenty of community out on the towpath, because there's a lot of places that are popular, regular mooring spots for a lot of boats that will pass a couple of times a year and so on. But here, it's one of them things where, again, a lot of people know this unfortunate face from all of the YouTube videos I did with Narrowboat Tilly. So there's a lot of people who, oh, Dan, I've seen your videos, oh, what's it like being back? And so obviously, for me, that makes my life a lot easier in terms of, as much as I'm an awkward person and a very socially awkward, nervous character, having people already know stuff and people having stuff that they want to ask you or talk about obviously makes life far easier in terms of making friends and that out on the canals. So thank you, everybody. It's an amazing experience as always. But here there's people who can obviously look out for you, and you can look out for them, and it helps again with that element of security and feeling less isolated, I suppose. Now, the rural places that I used to moor up on Narrowboat Tilly, it was never an issue. I know that some people would get very lonely on a boat in some of these empty, deserted places where there's no other sign of humanity, but for me, just being able to sit in a peaceful rural location and sit at my desk, that's the dream that was, certainly for those years, and just be uninterrupted writing for hours on end. And again, I can see that it's a big benefit for some people who perhaps don't want that and perhaps feel isolated or lonely out in those sort of places, to be in a marina where even if you're not actively out there chatting away to people, there's just, you'll hear people like go to work or come back from work and you'll hear footsteps along the jetty, and it's sort of that thing, it's almost nice to just know that there's people about, I suppose. My biggest fear was that of noise, talking about people being around, and I was worried, oh, will you hear tellies and stuff playing at night, and will the noise of working on boats in the marina be just driving me to distraction if I'm trying to sit down and write stuff? But I've got to be completely honest, I can't tell you how quiet it is. I'm probably by far the loudest person here when I'm recording my videos and waving my arms around and stuff. In reality, I'm amazed, and that's been a massive relief to me, and that reason alone, the sort of tranquility and the peace of the place, has really, it's encouraged me to stay here more long term potentially than if I'd have turned up and it had been more like I expected of, oh, there's people, there's noise and there's working going on the boats and that. I mean, obviously you expect there to be noise when you're surrounded by boats and the working marina, but it's that thing of, I suppose, I was concerned that where my threshold of what I could stand would be, and it turns out that there was absolutely no need for any of that concern at all over the last 2 weeks, as it's just, well, again, beautiful sun, people are coming and going on boats more than in the winter months, and obviously you've got busy times with holidays coming up and stuff, and yet still, even at these busy times, it's absolutely peaceful, it's absolutely beautiful in the evenings here. Another thing that I find when I moored up on Tilly in Chirk Marina, because Tilly was only a 30-foot boat, being sandwiched in between two much longer boats, I felt like I was in that sardine situation where I didn't have a single place on the boat, the bow, the stern, the windows, that I wasn't just boxed in by other much longer boats. Whereas here, Abel's Ark is 45 foot. I think the boats either side are slightly shorter. So I've got the bow and the bedroom up towards the main jetty between the boats on, I don't know what I'm trying to say, the central jetty. And then the stern with the seating area out there, pointing out into just the open marina water. And well, we'll go and take a look and I'll talk about it a bit more out there, I suppose. So if we step up onto the stern here, this is where I can really settle all of my concerns about the potential noise of being in a marina. Now obviously you get work going on in the dry dock and stuff, and you expect a certain amount of noise from a working marina, but this is 11 o'clock in the morning on a random Tuesday, and how beautiful and absolutely perfect is this? You can hear cars on the road in the distance, and well, as you can see, you've got the reflection of the water here and just the birds. And in terms of the immediate environment, well, as you can hear, it's pretty much absolutely silent. And another thing that I enjoy here is because I'm not moored on boats, I'm not moored between boats that are much bigger than Abel's Ark, I've got this seating area out here on the stern, which in some respects is more private and more open, even though we're in a marina surrounded by boats, than being on the towpath where at least one side of you would have the towpath and people walking past, whereas here we have literally got nothing but open water in almost, well, in I don't know how many degrees this is, 180 degrees. Got a tractor going along, don't know if you can see him, going up to the fields towards Tetchell there. Oh, I just caught my elbow on the engine control panel there. But yeah, I think that this pretty much settles and sums up how much more peaceful marina life has been than I'd anticipated. And like I say, that was one of my biggest concerns. Obviously you expect noise from dry docks and stuff, but it's such an infrequent thing, and it's not that loud as well. That's the other thing. Once I'm sat down there and I'm sat at my desk just along the back wall there, a lot of the noise that does occur is barely audible. So yeah, I've got to say, I'm really pleased with being in the marina just because of that being my main biggest fear, I suppose, that, oh, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, oh, I'll be distracted by this, oh, this, that and the other. Whereas in reality, as you can see, absolutely beautiful, lovely, peaceful place to be. And there's almost something about these boats being around here. It's like, again, in the evenings, coming back after work, and you've got the sun starting to go down and the sky going through its sunset colours, and you'll walk past and there'll be a couple of smoky chimneys as the evening's cool starting to draw in, and you've got like last night when I arrived back about 10:30 at night, so it's properly dark, and then just walking past these boats and you've got windows lit and that, again, just that really cosy, traditional, really stereotypical narrowboat imagery, I suppose, of your cosy boats moored up with the cold, harsh, dark conditions outside. But yeah, right, let's get back to the main video here. Probably the biggest individual factor when considering marina mooring, for many people, myself included, is going to be that of cost. It's a huge deal because you could consider yourself as a continuous cruiser out on the canal and not have a mooring and not pay anything, or you could come to a marina or have a fixed mooring and then pay something, and something is always more than absolutely nothing of travelling up and down the canal. So if I was to state, this is just based on the website figures here. I've got a few different websites that will talk about local marinas. So here it would cost, based on the figures on the website, it costs roughly, call it, about £2,500 a year to stay here if I paid for an annual mooring. Now that £2,500 is a huge amount of money compared to £0 to be a continuous cruiser out there on the canal. So that's why it's such a big deal, because it's not like a guaranteed, well, you'll pay this amount or you'll pay slightly less. It's, you can literally pay nothing or you can pay thousands of pounds. Now that, I've got to be honest, doesn't make me feel great, because I want to spend a lot of time still out on the canal, but I do love the convenience and the benefits of having the marina mooring, and I don't want to find myself in, say, 3 months' time out down Wixall for 2 weeks, or going out to Whitchurch, a little month trip, just mooring somewhere different for 4 weeks in a row, and be thinking in the back of my mind, oh, that's 200 quid that I've just wasted of non-used mooring time. And again, it's one of those things I think I'd have to really experience it to see how I felt about it. But it's something to consider, I suppose. Now, equally, if I went somewhere like Chirk Marina, it would, again, based on the figures on their website, it would cost me roughly £1,500. So you'd have £1,000 less than here. But, potentially, as I say, the ease of access here, and the bus route here, and the cycle ride here, and the services and stuff here, might make up for, I mean, for example, one of the things that I found a little weird at Chirk Marina was the jetties are floating. So my little narrowboat Tilly would rock around a lot more, because there wasn't one solid side with the ropes tied to. Because if you went to one side of the boat, it would rock and literally lift the jetty up slightly as well. So something like that on a tiny V-bottomed whole lightweight Springer 30-foot boat like Tilly, there's a lot more movement in here than a boat like this naturally. And then not having a solid fixed mooring point for the ropes to be solidly in place, it made it rock around even more, because every time the boat would rock, as I say, the jetty would be rising and falling with it. But as I say, it's just those sort of things that then you start thinking, is that extra £1,000 worth it? Is it not worth it? What can you do to sort of change the circumstances? And then there's another place, Whittington Wharf, as I think I mentioned in the cycling part of this video. I'm not even sure what I recorded when in this video now. But that would be a much easier bike ride, and almost, I would describe it as an almost nothing bike ride in and out to the boat and to work and friends and family, in comparison to the Ellesmere ride that's further up and over the hill. But there, even though that, when I spoke to the chap there, it would cost me less than £1,200 a year, so less than half the price of stopping here at Blackwater, it would have far less services, far less convenience in some respects, even though the cycling element is a really great bonus, because it would be like nothing to get on my bike from the Narrowboat Inn, from Whittington Wharf area to and from town. You don't have all of the services, and you are literally on an online marina, so it's on the side of the canal rather than being in a separate marina like this, which to me is sort of the whole point of being in a marina, is getting away from the traffic and the absolutely crazy summer traffic up here on the Llangollen. So you would have that element of, you'd be saving a lot of money a year, you'd still have a fixed home mooring to go to and to spend as much time on or off as you wanted, but you would also lose the actual sort of, well, I'm away from the traffic, and that almost the bonus tranquility in the summer months of being able to get away from the, well, as I say, there's no other way to win it, the traffic jams that sometimes occur out on the Llangollen Canal. And that's something that, again, you could look at that and it wouldn't bother you whatsoever. As I say, I did 4 years almost exclusively out on the canals, and certainly got a bit fun, a bit like being in a wave machine over the summer months, but I dealt with it for 4 years, so is it really worth spending that extra money to be in a marina where I'm not on the side of the canal, or is it worth saving that money and just being like, oh yeah, we'll just stop at the side of the canal, see what happens. So again, there's a lot of stuff to consider when it comes to the costs and comes to the location, I suppose, which only the individual person can really decide on what is worth the money, what isn't worth the money in their personal circumstances. And that's one of the things, like I say, that I was expecting to come here and be like, oh, it's too noisy, oh, I don't like being amongst boats either side of me, penning me in. And it hasn't been an issue at all. So I feel far more likely to stay here than go to maybe a cheaper marina at the moment. But again, we'll see how the next couple of weeks go and make a decision then. And as I say, in the next couple of weeks, I hope to be out on the canal, going up to probably go past Blakemere, beautiful place many of you know, and then from Blakemere, goodness knows where, down towards Whitchurch, just to spend a few really rural nights somewhere. And again, there'll be plenty of video footage from that, I'm sure. So at this point, I'm going to wrap things up and say thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this video of me just really letting loose any random thoughts that popped into my head from these first 2 weeks of being moored in a marina. It's a big novelty to me, so please bear with me. Next week it'll be a more normal video about actually getting settled into the boat properly. But until next week, if you're looking for something to do, please consider checking out my short Kindle books, available from narrowboatbooks.com. That'll take you straight to my Amazon page, or there's links in the description below. And if you don't want to read the Kindle books, then, well, here's this handy paperback collection of several of my Kindle books in one handy volume. My Narrowboat Life from beginning to end. This is all about my life on good old Narrowboat Tilly, as seen in the corner there. So yeah, please do consider checking those out. It really does help me out and spreading the word and that. If you'd like to add me on Facebook and Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram and Tumblr and Pinterest, there's links to those in the description below. Feel free to add me, honestly. I just post random boaty pictures and stuff like that, so you'll find my personal things on the Facebook pages and stuff in the description below. But until the next time, my friends, I suppose I should wrap this up. And again, with absolute delight, say thank you so much for tuning in. Until the next time, have a fantastic day. Keep it boat-worthy, keep it interesting, and of course, my friends, farewell. Keep it boat-worthy, it's back, and I'll keep making a big deal of it every time I say it. Anyway, have a great day, I'll see you around soon.